So yeah, let's yeah, I'll be back in probably about 20 minutes, something like that. Cool. I want to see I want to see NSF. So like NASA spaceflight is the NSF guys are covering this launch, just covering it. They're Astra doesn't have a cast. NASA spaceflight is doing it. All right, so let's go in here. So keen for this test flight. What? You were just away? Yeah. I can't decide when the groceries get here, man. Yeah, Chief. I'm pretty sure NASA spaceflight is just covering the Astra launch. Like that's their official stream. It's through NASA spaceflight. Yeah, pretty damn sure. Which is pretty crazy. That's pretty cool, man. So I'll be back in a little bit. Yeah, and then we'll go. I got 19 minutes now. Be back in a moment. All right, guys. You guys ready for a launch? Let's do this. Let's see what we got here. Let's take a look here. You guys ready for lunch? I just ate. Hopefully you did. All right. All right, let's check this out. So NSF is doing a live stream for ASTRA. Let's
sure that all the upgrades work before we launch the rocket into space.
let's take a look. Let's see what we got. When do you think we'll have the Wild West of planetary colonization? Don't know. Gotta make it cheap to get out there.
Once we're done with this test, we pack up the rocket and Astra is on its way to orbit.
Yep, so that's a live shot, and then there's a promo video over here.
So as we mentioned, today's mission is a test flight for the United States Space Force, and our first question is talking about the payload on board.
Looks like they're
today.
fueling.
So Carolina, what is in that payload fairing for today's launch?
Absolutely. We have a payload from the U.S. Space Force, part of the Space Test Program. It is a test payload, so we will not be deploying it on today's mission.
Gotcha. And this is, of course, Astra's third orbital launch attempt, and I believe that makes today's flight the first Astra launch with an actual payload on board.
That's right. This is our first commercial payload on board an Astro rocket, which is very exciting.
And I want to talk about where today's launch is lifting off from. We're looking at the beautiful launch site out in Kodiak, Alaska, which
No,
was also the
Trojan, I
home
haven't.
of the two prior Rocket 3 orbital launch attempts, correct?
Yes, that's right. Our
Kodiak.
seventh launch pad in Kodiak, Alaska is what you're looking at now on your screen.
Is that audio
Kodiak
low,
is
dudes?
250 miles south of Anchorage and is the second largest island in the United States after the big island of Hawaii. You might be surprised, but the weather is actually not as cold there as you might think. Typically, highs are in the 60s and lows are in the 50s Fahrenheit this time of year. Kodiak is the home of the Pacific Spaceport Complex, Alaska, also known as PSCA, which first opened in 1998 and is a launching site for suborbital and orbital launch vehicles in the US. That's where LV-6 will launch from today. And we'd like to take a moment now to thank all of the PSCA team for being an instrumental part of our launch and continuing to help us safely and efficiently operate in beautiful Kodiak.
All right, let's see what we got here.
It is an absolutely gorgeous launch site, and we're getting treated to some beautiful views of today's launch. And like we said, we're just over 50 minutes away. We're currently targeting a liftoff of 2
Yeah, of
p.m.
course, you're
Pacific
right.
time. And that is the opening of a window. And as you can see on the screen,
About 50 minutes
one
out.
watch item we are looking at is winds. But I believe right now everything is tracking on time for launch. Is that right?
That's right. So far, we are moving smoothly through our countdown procedure.
That is great to hear. You will also be hearing the countdown net as the launch controllers go through their various procedures. You'll hear that every once in a while. That'll give another update on how the countdown is progressing. And as we look at mission control here in Alameda, I'll point out, well, one of them has stepped out. I'll point out the launch conductor, which is Charles Hoffman in the Mohawk in the back row there. He will be joined on his right
Guy has
shortly by
googly
launch
eyes on his
director
monitor.
Chris Thompson. And that is the half a dozen or so folks here in launch control in Alameda, and they are joined by another crew that is similarly small out there in Kodiak, isn't that right?
That's right. We have our red team of 6 that's out there in Alaska. They do everything that we need to do to set up our whole launch site, prepare the rocket, and it's been wonderful to have a very small and nimble team, especially as we continue to work through
Scare
the
your enemies.
COVID-19
Yep.
pandemic. The team is working very hard to stay safe out there, and we want to thank them for all that they do to help us operate so efficiently.
You will be able to see the teams hard at work today, and what we're also seeing now is the beginning of propellant load operations. Just before this stream started, the teams pulled go for propellant load, and you can see the rocket starting to get frosty on the outside. Let's talk a little bit about that. The Astro Rocket 3 series is fueled by
Trojan.
kerosene and liquid oxygen. The kerosene is ambient temperature, which is why you're going to see that frost line kind of partway up the rocket there, not the entire rocket, because only the liquid oxygen tank, which is on top, is going to cause the air around the rocket to condense, and you'll see that ice forming on the outside, as we see with many, many launch vehicles that we watch here at NASA Space Flight. And as that frost progresses, we'll get that visual indicator of how fuel load is going. And that will continue until just a few minutes before launch. Diving back into some more questions here, we have one asking about potential future reusability. I don't believe Astra is going to go that route. Can you talk a little bit about why, Carolina?
Right, we are focused on producing expendable rockets. There's a few reasons. One is just from a physics perspective, you have to carry extra mass to make a rocket that can withstand reusable flight. And we also get economies of scale as we make more and more of the same type of rocket, since we can save that refurbishment cost. And finally, we are designed our rocket as a small rocket that is not designed to be carrying people. We're sending payloads up into space. And so we want to focus on making something as efficient and simple as possible.
Yeah.
One of our values here at ASTRA is that simple scales. So we don't want to add a lot of mass and try and reuse things and build in that extra engineering work.
Where is this?
So
Kodiak, Alaska,
expendable design, we believe, is going to be the path to help us get up to scale.
That simple scales philosophy is written all over the place here at the factory. You see it everywhere. And those simple, small launch vehicles that you can mass produce to the point where your serial number needs three zeros at the beginning of it, so you have room for all those future rockets.
Absolutely. We are hoping to provide daily space delivery someday. So those 3 zeros, we can't wait to have LV9999 under our belt.
Got it, Kim. So actually, you know what, dudes? While we're so far out here, Astra actually has the press kit that Sawyer linked actually a little bit ago here. Let's go over here and we'll take a look at their press kit on the rocket. Let's see what we got. So the launch window is the 27th of August. So today to the 11th of September there. This is Launchpad 3B at the Pacific Spaceport. So the Pacific Spaceport is it's up in Kodiak Island in Alaska. Here, I'll show you. Why the launch from Alaska when it's nowhere near the equator? Polar launches. It really doesn't matter where you launch polar from. If you're going north-south, yeah, it's not that big of a problem. So here's Kodiak Island. I believe the launch sites are somewhere out here. I think. What the heck is that? Is that an airplane? Satellite got a picture of the dang airplane. There's the Coast Guard base. It's chemtrails here. Nope. South. Yeah, it's down here, isn't it? Isn't it? I'm trying to find them. They're hard to see. It's not a big space center. It really isn't. It's Mohawks in space. This is the one I always lose. I always lose it. I don't know where it is. I mean, man, look at all that. That's a big island. You don't really realize how big it is, right? Yeah, aren't they down here or something? Location. Oh, we got a bunch of locations in chat. Here we go. Ready? God damn it. I was looking at it. It was right in front of me. I should have just looked for a little bit longer. It's right in front of me. Okay, so the Pacific Spaceport doesn't see much action, I'll be honest with you. That's a Minotaur, I think. Minotaur launch site, from what it looks like. Yeah, there really isn't much out here, huh? Pretty launch site, though. Yeah, so it looks like it's just this whole area right here. Good for polar launches. Where do the people stay overnight? It looks like there's some infrastructure out here. Not much, though. Those look like places where people stay. But see, like, just because there's a lot of infrastructure out here doesn't mean that much. Astra's rocket, so this thing is entirely designed to fit in shipping containers. The entire launch pad can fit into shipping containers. That's all. The whole thing. See all those shipping containers right there? The launch pad, the launch vehicle, everything can be shipped anywhere in the world. Literally all you need is a concrete surface and just something to bolt the pad down to, and you're good. Is it ICBM derived? No, this is an in-house design. First stage has 5 Delphin engines in it. 32,500 pounds of thrust. That's okay. Okay, that's not. Yeah, see this Astra's. This is a little tiny rocket. This is a little baby rocket, very small. Like I said, the whole thing can fit in a shipping container. The rocket on the transporter can fit in a shipping container. It's very, 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 very compact. The idea is that you could basically set up shop anywhere you want very, very quickly. You want to get something into orbit instead of like, oh, geez, we got to go to the launch site. We have to put the vehicle together. Oh, man, it's such a big pain. No. You can have the launch site literally at the factory, put the rocket together, put it in a shipping container, and then drive it wherever you want. And then once you're there, you back the rocket out, you set up shop, hook up the fuel lines, hook up the mission control, and then as long as you have an internet connection, you can hook up the mission controllers at the office in Alameda, California. I processed a few subpar shots. Oh, neat. That's cool, man. Seems like sea launch from a ship might be fairly viable if it fits in a shipping container. I don't see why you couldn't, Yarg. The flame deflector is built into the pad. Like I said, the whole thing can fit into a shipping container. All of it. See all the shipping containers that they have on the sides there? Even the fuel tanks. The fuel tanks are the same dimensions as a Connex. Locks might be a little bit weird. I'm not sure, and I'm not entirely sure how they do that, but either way, getting the locks there isn't the worst part, Sea launching is something they're looking at doing as well. It's a cool rocket. Yeah, this press kit is really neat. Has the launch already happened? No, Cosworth. No, not yet. We were just looking through the press kit here. It looks like they have a mass simulator on there. Mission includes a non-deployable Space Force payload. So it's something that stays hooked up to the second stage, whatever it is. Link to the press kit pose. What's the payload capacity? It's a small sat launcher, dude. Not very high. Yeah, 52 inches in diameter. That's really... Here, let's see. Yeah, it's not a lot, Yarg. Maybe, 100 pounds. 52. This is 52 from finger to finger right here. It's not a lot, man. It's a small boy. Very small little rocket. I'm just trying to look through if there's any other information here. So they're going to a 70-degree inclination. That's strange. The payload will not be deployed from the second stage as it's a test system which will provide data on vibration, thermals, and acoustics. Oh, it's a flight instrumentation unit. Got it. Developmental flight instrumentation. It's basically just a bunch of sensors. They're just testing basically, vibrations and thermals and stuff, and acoustics. Cool. Wonder if this rocket could fit inside the payload bay of Starship. It could fit inside the payload bay of the space shuttle. The whole launch pad. Well, maybe not the whole launch pad, but close. 43 feet. That could almost, yeah, the space shuttle could probably move this and its launch pad into space. That's how, yeah. Starship absolutely could. You could fit everything in Starship's payload bay, man. But yeah. All right, let's check back over the cast. Let's see what's going on. Once again, NASA Spaceflight is doing the cast for them.
The rocket,
which is pretty cool.
A nice indicator that we are approaching our terminal count.
And I know that seeing some of the prior tests, we saw that static fire video. We've seen video from prior launches, and that water deluge system is dramatic and very visible, so we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that. Keep your questions coming. Again, tag us with @NASA Spaceflight if you have more questions for us in chat. In the meantime, let's go ahead and listen back into the countdown net as the countdown proceeds.
It's definitely windy. You could pick it up on the microphones. The guy's got googly eyes, yeah. Do we know what kind of orbit? 70-degree inclined at 400 kilometers. I think the press kit said 400. Let me check one more time. Yep, 415 kilometer altitude. Yep. Cool. I'm going to bring us over to the NSF video. There we go. Yeah, but that you might notice the googly eyes, but then you notice the flight director, and you notice the flight director's haircut. ASTRA will be using Alaska a lot. This is Chris Kemp, the CEO. Thrilled that ASTRA is now authorized to conduct launches out of Kodiak through 2026 with the FAA launch operator's license. Cool. Looks like they're doing a gas chill down on the transporter here. Something like this far out from the T-minus time tells me that they're getting all the atmosphere out of the pipe that goes up to the second stage to fuel it. Let's see what Thomas and
we're excited. We're ready to do this. We spent a lot of time getting our rocket ready, and now's the time to see how it goes.
So what are your responsibilities here as the CTO of ASTRA?
I lead sort of the overall technical decision and architecture of the vehicle, and also help work on advanced technologies.
And talk about some of those upgrades. We're coming to Rocket 3.3, first launch of this version of the rocket, and there's been some upgrades since 3.2. Can you talk a little bit about what's changed for this launch?
Sure. Our first focus was making sure that we understood and fixed the issues that caused the previous rocket to not quite make orbit, and so we've addressed the fuel consumption and mixture ratio control situations. That was one thing, but in addition we made a number of other improvements, including lengthening the rocket a little bit, so it's about 5 feet longer than the previous one, as well as improving the performance of the upper stage.
I'm not really happy with how they do.
And how do you balance making those kind of upgrades and tweaks when you learn from every single flight when you have several rockets in various stages of production at any one time?
It's tricky, but we try to, ultimately our goal is to build batches, and so the next rocket, LV0007, is on the floor over here getting built, and if this rocket goes well, it will be an identical copy. If from this rocket we learn things that make us want to change a few things, we'll make some small changes in it and continue moving along in that direction.
And how is ASTRA currently working today to transition not just between launches and learning from every single flight, but also transitioning towards your future rockets, maybe scaling it up to larger payload capabilities or bringing down launch cadence time so you can eventually achieve that daily launch cadence?
Yeah,
About a half
lot
hour.
of what we're doing now is thinking about production, and so the Rocket 3 series will be the one that we first produce at rate, and so 0007 will be next, and then 0008, 0009. In that process, we'll be learning and taking those learnings to apply them to future improvements of the rocket.
I'm going to take a question here from chat here. They want to ask Dr. London,
It's Carolox,
what is the
Bobby.
most fun part of rocket design? Because I know you have some very interesting rocket design programs in your history.
It's actually about the same size.
Always watching the rocket's light, either the engines in the test cell or the rocket as it's getting ready to leave the pad.
And lastly, I want to ask you one last question before we let you go. On launch day here, thank you so much for joining our sort of pre-launch, pre-game interview. Once we are getting close to T0, what are you going to be doing and where are you going to be watching the launch from?
Well, once we get to T0, there's not much we can do. The rocket flies itself, and so I'll be sitting there with the rest of the team, enjoying the video and watching the data to see how it performs.
Adam, thank you so much for joining us. We're all looking very much forward to this launch, and best of luck to you and the teams. And just, yeah, thanks so much for taking some time with us today.
Thanks for being here, and looking forward to seeing this flight.
All right, let's listen back into the countdown, Ed, as the countdown proceeds past T-minus 33 minutes and counting.
I don't think Brimo would allow you to get a mohawk. I cut my own hair. See, man, I'll cut it however I see fit, man. If she doesn't like it, yeah, she'll come around. It's no problem. She's coming around to the mullet and the mustache. What do you mean big talk? Big talk? It ain't talk. I've done it. I've done it already, bro. What do you mean big talk? A mullet mohawk? Oh, Jesus. Okay, mister, I miss my mullet. Yeah, Josh, you know that was you. That was your stupid bet. Chats, not Brimo. You know that, right? That was you guys, not her. Or a skullet. Alright, so once again, it looks like they're doing a thermal chill down here on the line. So what does that mean? So the upper stage needs two things, two propellants. You need liquid fuel, and you need, in this case, you need Carolox, kerosene and liquid. Rewind 15 seconds, all right? You need two types of propellants for the upper stage. You need liquid oxygen and you need kerosene, okay? The kerosene is basically diesel fuel. For the most part, it's actually more like jet fuel. But diesel's good enough. It's close enough to that. That's not cryogenic. So it's not, long story short, the plain English way to say that is it's not cold. The liquid oxygen, though, that's causing the condensation on the first stage right there, that is cold. What you don't want to do is pump liquid oxygen up a line that's 60 degrees Fahrenheit. They said it's 60 degrees outside. That's, what is that, like 15 or something, 15C or whatever? You don't want to pump the fuel up a warm line, so they're chilling down the line. They basically have a vent open. They're going to pump the liquid oxygen up through the line. Some of it is going to boil off. Some of it is going to go infrared like that. No, that was the encoder. And it's going to turn to gas. It's going to evaporate because it's absorbing the heat from the line. You got to get the entire line cold. And when you get the entire line cold, that's when you start pumping fuel. So there's a vent going on over here, and then one of these things is the fuel line. I don't know which one it is. Maybe this thing? I'm not sure. But it seems like they're doing a chill down. You wouldn't vent out of the erector like this at this far away from the count. So that means they're either venting fuel overboard, which is not what, or oxidizer overboard, which is not what you want, or they're chilling a line down.
This here in our headquarters in Alameda, so it is very, very far away. We have our team at Kodiak, the red team that helps to set up and prepare everything for launch on site. They have fallen back to a safe distance from the pad, but our launch control is entirely here in Alameda. We have our mission control camera that you've been seeing, and we also have the team of engineers who has worked on the system and is looking at data dispersed throughout our factory.
And that red team, which has backed away from the launch site, obviously now that we're into propellant load, is not actively controlling the launch then. That's all on the people sitting behind us here in California.
Right. The vehicle is entirely controlled from our launch control here in Alameda.
And then here in Alameda is not just mission control. We're in the middle of a giant factory space. Does all of the manufacturing still happen here in California?
Yes, actually, all of our manufacturing still happens here at our headquarters in Alameda, and we also do a bunch of our engine testing here on site as well. It's pretty amazing to see an engine built on a benchtop and rolled over to our test facility literally across the road on the stand and fired off in the same day.
We definitely appreciated the opportunity to get a tour of those factory and test facilities last week prior to this launch campaign, and we're looking forward to sharing that on the NASA Spaceflight channel, so stay tuned for that on NASA Spaceflight on YouTube. In the meantime, 28 minutes and counting, teams continuing to count down towards the launch of Launch Vehicle 0006, Astra's third orbital launch attempt. I want to talk a little bit about the teams that have built this rocket, tested this rocket, and are now conducting the launch attempt. Well, around here in Alameda, we've seen a lot of people coming from a lot of different backgrounds. Even at the high VP level, there's a lot of people coming with maybe not even aerospace experience, coming from a lot of different industries. Can you talk a little bit about how that makes Astra a bit of a different rocket company?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're here in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is not a typical place where you find a lot of rocket manufacturers. So we like to take advantage and try and think differently as we're trying to build a rocket in a way that no one has ever built one before. So we do have a lot of folks who come from Silicon Valley companies. We have folks from the automotive industry. We really value that diversity of thinking as we try and build differently.
And we have a question in chat about someone who may be potentially looking to join that team, wondering if Astra has an intern program?
Yes, we do love having interns here at Astra. You can learn more at our careers page on the Astra website. But we've had, as our summer's wrapping up, we've had a wonderful group of interns that have just wrapped up their summers, and we hope to welcome many of them back.
How tall is the rocket?
Excellent. Another question in chat. Again, we are targeting a liftoff time of 2 p.m. Pacific time, but a question asking how long does that launch window remain open for? Because that's just the opening of today's attempt.
Right. So if we're, for any reason, have to scrub today's launch, we do have launch attempt. Our launch window extends through September 11th, so we have plenty of chances to try again. It's not an instantaneous window, so we'll have a few hours, but we do know that the wind is looking best at the beginning of our window. So we're hoping to light that candle at the very start of our window.
Sounds good to me. Again, 26 minutes and counting to the opening of that window. Teams monitoring winds, but otherwise everything tracking on track for launch. And again, keep those questions coming into chat. Tag us with that NASA Spaceflight.
52
and we're going to keep them coming till we get to that business end of the countdown.
42 feet tall.
To preview a little bit, I believe we'll get into that terminal count bit just about 15 minutes from liftoff. So we're just over 10 minutes away from things really kicking into high gear here. In the meantime, let's go ahead and listen back into the countdown net as the countdown proceeds.
They're a small sat up. They're a startup small sat launcher, Canadian. So Astra, nobody knew anything about Astra till like maybe 1 or 2 years ago. They were kind of working very stealthy. At least we didn't really talk about them too much. Astra came out of the blue with this.
Discovery.
Oh man, when was it? It was like 2019 or something. And they came out of the blue and they're like, yep, we got a rocket. And everyone's like, wait, what? And then they explained why they had a rocket and why they were doing this and why they built the rocket this way. Astra came out of a DARPA program, believe it or not, the Department of Advanced Projects Research Agency. So the DARPA project, and it was a contract from DARPA. It was basically a contest to be able to demonstrate launch capability, launch with the rocket, basically setting up a pad, turning around the rocket in a certain amount of time, and launching the rocket. So they came out of a DARPA project. They ended up not making the contract. The first rocket didn't go. It failed. But they didn't really launch it. They didn't launch it right away. They didn't get the payout on the contract. But they said, they're still going to keep going with it, and now they're going to keep going with it. But that's what the project came out of. It came out of a DARPA contest. I'm pretty dang sure. Yeah. Once again, the cool thing, Jim, you're a big fan of Astra and Chris Kemp. Right on, man. Hey, passing. Good day. It failed as in missing the deadline. Yeah, and then they went to launch it a little bit later, Drummer, and it didn't get into orbit. That was rocket 3.1. 3.0 was the first attempt. That missed the deadline. Then they did 3.1, 3.2, and now we have 3.3. This is 3.3 on the pad. They're making iterative upgrades to their serial production. Astra got known when this happened. Yeah, the rocket came back down, exactly. But it got off the pad, so that's good. Long story short, Astra for that contract here. Let me go look it up. Let me see if I can remember it off. I can't remember it off the top of my head. It was cool here. Astra contract. So, here, let's take a look. DARPA launch challenges closes with no winner. Less than 2 years before it starts, DARPA's efforts to stress the approaches and processes associated with space launch ended March 2nd with the lone challenge participant Astra scrubbing its launch with less than a minute in the final countdown before liftoff. Astra faced technical challenges with weather-related issues during the roughly 2 week of the challenge window. Okay. So it was DARPA's timeline to demonstrate a flexible, responsive launch capability proved especially difficult. February 2020 marked the opening of the first launch opportunity for the challenge. Astra had 4 days for setup, 14 days of potential launch windows to prepare, integrate, and then launch DARPA's prescribed payload to low Earth orbit. Campaign duration was allocated. Campaign duration was allocated considering hard yet achievable goals for flex launch systems operations and taking into account potential delays for weather. Yeah, this DARPA challenge was be able to it was basically set up launch quickly. Get a launch vehicle up to a launch site, set it up and launch it, weather permitting in a certain amount of time, and then do it again and then do it again. You had to do it 3 times. Yeah, they didn't make it, but they still have awesome capability, and that's kind of what Astra is trying to bring to the table in the small sat launch market. They can literally launch anything from anywhere. The whole launch system can fit in a shipping container, or a couple of them. So here, let's go back over the cast.
We enter a hold at T-minus 20 minutes for a few minutes while the team spends some additional time on software configurations, but everything is proceeding nominally at this time.
Yeah, and we'll stand by for a new T0 once that hold clears. Again, coming up on a hold in just over a minute as teams continue to just make sure the rocket is 100% ready to go. In the meantime, we have more questions, so we're going to keep those coming. And let's talk a little bit about engines and propulsion. This rocket, I believe, has 5 engines on the first stage, 1 on the upper stage. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yes, absolutely. So our engines on this vehicle are all designed and built in-house by Astra. Our 5 first stage engines are electric pump-fed engines. We call them Delphins, and they each produce about 6,500 pounds of thrust on the first stage, and there were 5 of them. And then on the upper stage, we have a pressure-fed ether engine, which is about 700 pounds of thrust, and both stages use the same LOX kerosene propellant.
Ether on the upper stage.
And is there a reason that Astra chose that particular propellant combination for Rocket 3?
We like to use things that are simple and efficient, and this was the right choice for this vehicle.
Gotcha. Again, we're coming up on T-minus 20 minutes. You're going to see that clock hold for a little bit.
I got you.
The right choice for this vehicle.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. It is windy. The camera is. Ether on the upper stage. They're using ether as a liquid fuel. Interesting. Got a bunch of carb cleaner up there. Yeah. So if you're looking at the first stage is all covered in ice that was formed from condensing water vapor in the atmosphere because they filled the thing up with LOX, liquid oxygen. And why the bottom part is shiny is because it's got diesel fuel in it. It's got kerosene. Kerosene is not cold. But okay, so it looks like a planned 20-minute hold here. Let's just
square foot factory on the grounds of the former Naval Air Station in Alameda, and we test our rocket engines just across the street in indoor test cells that were once used by the U.S. Navy to perform jet engine testing.
That's
we have
really
conducted
cool,
2 suborbital
actually.
test launches so far, and today's launch of LV-6 is our 3rd orbital launch attempt with hopefully many more missions to come.
I can't recall one off the top of my
And if
head.
you're interested in staying in the loop on our work and announcements, you can follow us on Twitter. Our handle is @ASTRA.
At ASTRA.
Definitely looking forward to this being
nice.
the first of many launches to come for
Nice.
ASTRA, not just from Kodiak, but from elsewhere as well. Again, if you have questions about anything you are seeing, throw them in the chat, tag us with that NASA spaceflight, and we're going to keep going through those throughout the countdown. Again, if you're just joining us, we're in a hold at T-minus 20 minutes.
I'm
Team's
90%
continuing to work
sure
through the countdown.
Ether
We
is the
have
name,
a fair
and
bit
it's
of time in
RP1
today's
LOX.
window. So
Why? Well, when Caroline was explaining the first and second stage, Justin, why would she make a distinction between the first stage being Carolox and the second stage being Ether? Why would she say that then? Honest question. Ether is the name of the upper stage engine. Ah, okay. Ether's the name of the engine. I gotcha. That makes more sense. LV-426. Nice. Look at the press kit! We will look at the press kit right now. Let's see. Ah, okay. It is kerosene. Alright, cool. I was like, wait a minute, Ether? That doesn't make any sense. It's the name of the engine. Got it. So Delphin and Ether. We got 5 in the first, 1 in the second. Yeah, these are small. These are not very powerful rocket engines. But then again, it's not a big rocket, so it doesn't need to be that powerful. It just, just needs to be good enough. We're in a hodl right now, chat. Flight director is not in the control room. The monitor that says Astra on it is the flight director's desk, not googly eyes over here. It's a pressure-fed liquid oxygen oxygen Carolox engine. Interesting. I keep saying liquid oxygen Carolox engine. That's like saying ATM machine. It's a pressure-fed Carolox engine in the upper stage. Interesting. Where is this launch? Kodiak, Alaska. The Pacific launch site. I converted the units to ones that people know a little bit more. Yeah, LTO, I'm pretty sure. Hey. Mr. Space Force over there. Who is that guy? Mr. Space Force. Fist bump. Where's Mr. Space Force? You guys didn't see the guy in uniform? Just what? Look. Is it Guardian? Yeah. What uniform? Took me a second. What are we watching exactly? What is the payload? Will it be orbital? Hey, Blockmeister. So this is Astra Launch Vehicle 6. Launch Vehicle 6 is their rocket 3.3, I think is the name of this thing. They're launching this for the Space Force, and basically it's got a payload that's just a bunch of sensors, and they're gonna shoot for orbital. Astra hasn't gotten orbital yet. So they're gonna try to make this one into orbit. If this works, it'll be the first one that they fired off into orbit, which is pretty cool. Once again, basically it has a developmental flight instrumentation unit on it, DFIU. It's basically just a recorder that records all the telemetry on the vehicle, like all the sensors and everything, and then just sends it back to the guys.
And again, as I say, let's listen into the countdown net. The countdown net gets nice and quiet. We will keep listening into that and checking in on how the teams are proceeding through the countdown. In the meantime, we'll keep taking some questions here. And about those launch teams, we have a question about what's the difference between a launch conductor and a launch director?
Yes, so our launch director is the final launch authority who's responsible for the safety of overall launch operations, while the launch conductor is the person who oversees and directs launch vehicle operations. It's the one who's following the countdown manual, who can call hold, recycle, or abort as required. And as we are in this hold, that is one of the responsibilities of the launch conductor. We are in this hold as the team updates their software configurations on the vehicle.
Gotcha. A couple questions about the operations around today's launch. We have one asking, how big is the exclusion zone around this rocket, and does anyone have to vacate the area to launch from Kodiak today?
Yes, we do want to make sure that safe operations of both people and property are followed. So don't know the precise dimensions of that exclusion zone, but we are working with the Coast Guard and the FAA to make sure we're clearing the airspace and we're clearing the ocean as well, and making sure that the beaches are also clear of anyone who may be a little too close to our rocket launch.
And keeping on the content, or on the topic of launching from Alaska, we have a question asking, isn't that less efficient than launching from, say, Florida or someplace closer to the equator?
Well, that entirely depends on where you want to go. So our payload today, our test payload, which will not be deployed, is going to a high inclination, and Kodiak is great for reaching those types of orbital inclinations as well as polar orbits. So different launch sites can get you different access to different portions of space, and so we really like launching from Kodiak when we need to go to those polar orbits.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it would actually hurt you if you were trying to launch to a polar orbit from Florida, because you actually have to get rid of a lot of that extra velocity you get from being closer to the equator.
That's right.
So those low inclination missions, which launch closer to the equator, they take advantage of that. But if you're trying to launch into a polar orbit, it actually hurts you, which is why launching from up north in Alaska works so well. And also, I believe there's another benefit, at least for these early test flights, for being at a launch range that's not very busy and more remote than some of the more busier or more traditional launch complexes.
Right, definitely. One of the reasons why we have enjoyed working at PSCA, our Pacific Spaceport Complex in Kodiak, is because they've been really helpful in working with us on getting the availability that we need and making sure that we can hit our launch schedules and our targets.
Oh, okay, another vent.
We're seeing a lot of really cool venting from the pad there. You can also listen into the pad mics and hear that. It's super cool to hear. About that ground equipment though, people asking, does that launch base also fit into the shipping container, not just the rocket? I believe it's all the equipment ships up that way, right?
Right, everything that you see here fits in standard shipping equipment. So that rocket itself fits in a 45-foot shipping container, and everything else that you see, aside from the concrete ground, does go over boats and trucks to our launch site.
I kind of want to build something like that in Kerbal.
Also, we're getting a really good view here of the top of this rocket, that payload fairing, and we have a question about that coming from chat. It's got a bit of a unique shape. It looks like it might even split into more than two pieces, or is it? If that's not the case, what is the deal with that cool fairing shape?
Yeah, we will hopefully see the fairing split. It is broken down the middle into two halves, and so one of the things we are really hoping with today's flight is that we see that beautiful fairing separation of the two halves coming apart, so we can complete our mission. And if we were to deploy a payload, that's when we would deploy a payload after that fairing has separated from the vehicle. But again, it is a test payload today that will not be deployed.
And a bit of a unique aspect to the ASTRA Rocket 3, I believe that fairing separates also not just to expose the payload, but to expose the upper stage. That fairing actually separates prior to the two stages separating, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So as we continue to move towards our eventual launch time, again, teams are currently holding, continuing to, with those pre-launch preparations. But once we can get that clock counting again, as long as those winds cooperate as well, we'll hopefully be able to see that really cool stage separation. It's very cool to see. In the meantime, if there is a hold later in the countdown, I know we did not get into terminal count yet, so we haven't had this issue yet, but once we get past that terminal count point, about 15 minutes into launch, how fast can that rocket recycle and make another launch attempt?
Yes, absolutely. So with this type of hold, we would pick up the count right where we left off. If we are within that 15-minute terminal count period, we would recycle the launch attempt from the top of that 15-minute mark.
For this particular version of the rocket, a question in chat about what the maximum weight for a payload on Rocket 3.3 is right now.
Right, so again, that depends on where we're launching from and where the payload wants to go. Our capacity does vary because we are a small rocket. There's some variance in where we can, how much payload we can get to different orbital destinations.
We talked a little bit earlier about Astra working to also scale up to slightly bigger rockets, hit those different payload mass goals and things like that. Astra's got a lot of long-term goals, that big one being that daily launch cadence, which is so cool just to think about that being enabled. Where do you see Astra in the next 10 years or so?
Yeah, Vanguard maybe.
Absolutely. I think daily space delivery is something that we've said we are passionate about and we are heading towards, and so we're making strides towards that goal. And it'll also be really interesting to see where the whole industry is in 10 years from now. Thinking back 10 years ago, that was near the end of the space shuttle program, and many of these commercial launches were just coming on the horizon. It's amazing to see the progress that I don't think could have really been imagined at that point 10 years ago. So who knows where we're going to be 10 years from now, but I hope it means a lot of rockets.
For the NASA spaceflight editors watching this stream, you hear that? That was a shuttle reference. We got one in for this stream, okay? We're going to continue checking in for activity on the countdown net and listening into those patent mics as we wait for teams to continue working towards clearing this hold.
That's not for me. That's for the one guy that I would defer shuttle judgment to, Chris B. That was for Chris B. That's like one of the few people out there that's, I think, a bigger space shuttle fan than I am. Yeah. Chris still posts pictures of the space shuttle on Twitter every Sunday, dude. He has been for like 10 years. I, for one, accept these shuttle references. Yeah, right, Joe? Yeah, if you say space shuttle 3 times in the mirror, Chris B will pop them and be like, oh, right, you got them in more of shuttles. You'll be like, yep. That's right, Pigsy. Chris B isn't a fan of Ares 1, though. Yeah, he'll come around. I bet you I could convince him. Yeah, it's in a planned hold, Fozzie. They're holding on something. It looks like they're just doing routine tank vents every once in a while just to keep the pressure stabilized inside of the first and second stage. That's what these vent lines are for. Is Rogozin's invite a trap? Why would it be a trap? Just joined. Can you say what this test is for? Nope, I can't say it. Nope. It has a DFIU on board, Rob, from what I understand. I call them DFIUs because that's what they called them during the shuttle program. A Developmental Flight Instrumentation Unit. So I don't know if the one that they have up there is called that. It's basically a flight recorder. They have a black box in the payload fairing where the payload should be, and it's just recording everything. They're doing this for the Space Force to make sure that the rocket can carry the types of payloads that the Space Force wants it to carry. When are you going to go on NSF Live? Total Stables, if they asked me, I would, but I'm not going to invite myself onto their show. That's a little weird, don't you think? If they ask, I'll do it. But once again, I'm not going to go over there and be like, hey, I should be on this. Like, that's a little too presumptuous for me. So I'm sure they would one of these days. Maybe. Who knows? What's the expected T-0? Well, the expected T0 is when that clock hits 0 in the top left, Jim. I.e., we're in a hold. So I don't know. We're in a hodl right now. Yeah, the view is really nice, dude. I can't stop looking at it. Mountains. Mountain. Yeah, Bandit is cool. That's awfully windy. Where do they launch from? This is Kodiak, Alaska. What is this baby rocket? This is a company called ASTRA. ASTRA is a small sat startup, and I know there's a lot of those around lately, but what ASTRA's... Every one of these small sat companies is trying to do something a little different to bring something to the table. Nobody just wants to build another freaking rocket. Like, oh, another small sat launcher, what does it do? Everybody's trying to look for ways to be more sustainable in the industry. So everybody's looking for a sell. Like, they're looking for something that's going to make their small sat launcher better than the other guy's small sat launcher. Astra's way of trying to solve that problem and make their rocket unique to anybody else's is that the rocket, the launch pad, the fuel tanks, everything, the launch control team is actually remote. All they need is an internet connection. They can set up the pad anywhere where there's a concrete slab. All of it ships in shipping containers, a standard Connex, standard TEU. 50-foot TEUs. 50-foot TEUs is funny to say because TEU stands for, 20 foot, anyway.
If you are just joining us, we're here at Alameda's headquarters in California for live coverage of the launch vehicle 0006 launch. My name is Thomas Burkhardt. I'm a news director at NASAspaceflight.com. And joining me is Carolina Grossman, Director of Product Management at ASTRA. We are still in a hold right now. Do you have any updates for us?
No new updates since the last time we heard from the team. They are loading software configurations and we are still holding at T-minus 20 minutes.
We have gone through a very large part of the countdown to get to this 20-minute mark. Teams continue to work through some issues. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about the launch that preceded this one. We want to show a highlight video of Rocket 3.2's trip to space.
Oh yeah, here we go.
And this is what we're going to be hoping to see later today. Hopefully, there was that water deluge that we said was very dramatic, but it looks very cool. And there's only some minor changes from this Rocket 3.2 launch to the one we're hoping to see today.
Happens more often than you think,
should look fairly similar if all goes well.
That's right. We are hoping that we have resolved the issues that caused us to fall just shy of orbit, and we've also made some changes to increase our payload capacity on this vehicle.
This is a nice small rocket, so you'll notice that those early clips, it really likes to leap off the pad. I'm really looking forward to that. And then these stunning onboard views of stage separation and the upper stage ignition, hoping to get that live today as well.
Absolutely. It was an amazing moment here for the team at ASTRA to see that engine light and that beautiful stage separation is what you're seeing now, the fairing falling away. And it was a very, very exciting and happy day for us at ASTRA.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Okay, in the meantime, we're going to keep taking some questions from chat, and I've got one here asking about the lightning protection system out there in Kodiak. I see I've got two phone poles with lightning rods on them. Is that your lightning protection system?
Yeah, I was going to say, you took the answer, just like Jeopardy. It's, that is our lightning protection system.
So it is not the 4 towers that we may have seen out in Cape Canaveral sometimes, but still a lightning protection system out there for Rocket 3.3. Keep it going with some questions here. People asking, is Astra thinking about anything beyond low Earth orbit or Earth orbit?
Well, our focus and our mission is to improve life on Earth from space, so we are keeping focused on Earth orbit.
Das with the shade. Nice.
Another question from chat asking, how long does it take to manufacture one of Astra's rockets?
Right, well, we are actually ramping up for monthly production and hoping to complete 3 launches this year. So that is where we're at the moment, and hoping to continue making that faster and faster as we take steps to daily space delivery.
And can you talk a little bit about how Astra is working towards achieving not just the high launch cadence, but the low cost building price for these rockets?
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly one of the unique aspects of our launch system is that we focus on proven and cost-efficient parts as much as we possibly can. As we've said earlier in the broadcast, many of the components that you see on the rocket come into our factory as raw sheet metal, and we have our in-house machine shop team and our production team that turns it into flight hardware. And so we try and stay away from costly and labor-intensive materials like carbon fiber and 3D printing. We do use them sparingly, but they tend to be expensive, and more importantly, they are very difficult to build at scale. So we're focused on making a production line that can build and test rockets at an unprecedented pace. So we need to aim for simplicity in that design, and as we like to say at Astra, simple scales.
That's true. Well, 46
Again, if you are just joining us, we're in a hold at T-minus 20 minutes as launch teams continue to work. We'll continue to provide updates as they move towards clearing that hold and moving back towards a T0.
26 months. Thanks, buddy. Yep, simple does scale. That's right. Is Astra the same satellite company that does TV? No. They're not a satellite company. They're a launch provider, dude. Differences. The hurricane prediction in the Gulf is upgraded to Category 4 by landfall. New Orleans is fixing to get it again. Oh, jeez. Everybody uses a different cost scale PS5. That's why I always say that it's dumb to compare prices of launch vehicles. Everybody's cost structuring is totally different. One person is measuring distances with meters. The other one is measuring with feet. Another one is measuring with millimeters. Another one is measuring with yards, you know. Even, well, millimeters to meters would be fine, but yeah, everybody scales a little bit differently. Everybody does their books a little bit differently. There's no standardized accounting for rocket launches, which is why comparing prices between vehicles is a little weird. That more holds up with public-private stuff, so like comparing NASA stuff to, you know, commercial stuff. But even then, even the breakdown that way, I mean, 1/10 of a meter. It's tough to gauge scale correctly. 2.5 million though, guys, is really not a lot for a rocket launch. That's really low. Why don't they use SI units for everything? In what regard, Sonino? What do you mean? Like, are we talking about that? The measuring system thing was an example of cost scales. Everybody does the books on the accounting for the rocket a little bit differently. Most rockets are engineered in metric. Actually, I'm pretty sure that All new rockets nowadays are metric. Metric is what you need to match the tight tolerances for rocket science. You need stuff to be very precise. Isn't Starship meant to be $2 million to launch in the long term? Yeah, after scaling. That's what I mean. Because metric is better, because metric is better. Yeah, alright, here we go. No, it's not. It's not that it's better. You use what makes the most sense in the context of the situation. And before you say, oh, EJ, that's some crackpot theory. That's what Elon Musk said. That's what Elon Musk said in Tim's interview. So, yeah, have fun with your metric is better. Good luck shoehorning yourself into one type of measuring system. Have fun with that. Archangel, what's up? Once the payload is delivered, does the remainder of the rocket just become space trash? They'll probably deorbit it. The first stage burns up. It's not coming back down. And if it does come back down, it's going to land in the water. Yeah, I got to have the coffee sip in there just to piss people off, dude, brother. Zaja, you're too American for this conversation. What? What are you talking about? I never said that metric wasn't a good system. I said that you'd be stupid to confine yourself to one type of measuring system. You guys. Like, are we going to use metric for ship navigation? No, knots makes way more sense because ships use longitude and latitude to plot a course. Are we just going to switch? Ship's velocity needs to be in meters a second now because my metric is better? I think you guys are wrong.
Okay, this is Astra LC on countdown.
Ooh.
We are at step 112. We'll be doing software load, then setting ourselves a new T0 time. Tango, have you refreshed and are you ready for config loads?
Yes.
Tango, at this time, please go into machine pump battery 2, manage pump battery charge. Toggle stop charging batteries.
Copy that. Stopped.
Thomas.
In
Jesus.
AV1 manage power systems, please toggle off guidance power system authority.
All right. Looks like they're going to pick up the count here.
In AV1 manage polling, toggle do only ground.
Only ground.
And Tango, let me know when you're ready to load new configs.
Tango's always ready.
Engine Alpha 125 Victor 7.
Alpha 125 Victor 7. Loading.
I love that they just have the whole comm loop on. That's so cool.
Loaded.
Bravo 126 Victor 7.
Bravo 126 Victor 7. Loading.
Cool. That's so awesome, man. It's so cool that we're hearing the whole comms loop. Pretty happy with that. Not everybody does that. They're going into the action menus. That's right. These are engine configurations? I think so, yeah. I didn't hear exactly what they were talking about, but I'll try to... let me listen. I'll try to translate if they say anything else. What were they saying? Words. They were saying a bunch of words, and they were speaking English, I think. Yeah. Astra's attempt at trying to get orbital. If they make it, it'll be their first rocket that makes it into space. Like, into orbit. They've had 2 rockets make it into space. This is Kodiak, Alaska. Kodiak Island, Alaska. The Pacific Coast Space, it's the Pacific Space Launch Center, I think. It's way up north. And this thing is going into a 70-degree inclined orbit, so it's going to launch due southeast from here, or south-southeast from here. It's going to go basically that direction where my finger's pointing. Due south is this way. It's going to go over here. And at about 400 kilometers. What the payload that's aboard this rocket is an instrumentation unit. DFIU for short, Developmental Flight Instrumentation Unit. That's not what they call it. that's a good way to explain what it is. It's basically a black box for the rocket that's transmitting all the vibration, thermal, and acoustic data. They basically want to make sure it's... they basically want to see what kind of ride the payload is going to have on the way up into space. It's a test payload for the Space Force. STP-27AD1 is the name of this mission. Let's just say it's got sensors on the payload fairing. The payload will not be detached. The second stage, you know, Jeb Willing will make it into space and it'll broadcast that data back to them. This is the container rocket. Yep. Yeah, I'll say it once, I'll say it again. What's cool about Astra is that everything... Astra is a company that's out of Alameda, California. So basically in the Bay in San Francisco, if you know. They work out of the old Alameda Naval Air Station. If you like the second Matrix movie, they filmed the second Matrix movie there. The highway scene. It's an awesome scene. No, they work right there, believe it or not. The cool thing about Astra is that even though they're in San Francisco Bay, they build the rocket and put it on the pad in San Francisco, and then they ship the pad and the rocket and the fuel tanks and everything up via shipping containers to the launch site. All you need to launch this rocket is basically an internet connection and electrical connection. Everything else gets shipped up. And probably liquid oxygen because boil off and stuff, but... Mythbusters flashback. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Hesvik, yeah, that's exactly it. Mythbusters film there all the time. So, Pacific Spaceport Complex. Yep. Looking at it on Google's Earth right now. Thank you. So, yeah, the rocket...
Tango, are you ready to try to load engine Charlie?
I am.
Charlie, 127 Victor 8.
Dolphin Charlie, 127 Victor 8.
They're doing
Loading.
something with engine configuration on the first stage. I don't know what Victor 128 means. I have no idea. Delphin. Like dolphin, but with an E. And then Ether upper stage is the... Ether is the name of the upper stage engine. It is, yeah, XP. Yeah, the flight director is the guy with the mohawk, yep. Not Mr. Googly Eyes over here. That guy reminds you of Bane. This is the serial number, Potemkin. They've attempted launch, how many times prior? 3. First 2 were flight test articles. 3, 4, and 5 were suborbital demonstrations, let's call. 5 was trying to get to orbit, it didn't make it. 6 is the rocket you see on the screen now. It's version 3.3 on their rocket. They don't really have a name for the rocket. It's just, they've been just calling it Launch Vehicle 6, which denotes to the serial number. The version number is 3.3, and
Tango engine Delta.
They have a name for it.
Delta.
128 Victor 7.
128 Victor 7 loading.
They're up. It sounds like they're updating the software on the engines, guys. Kind of Pig Sig, yeah. In terms of payload capacity, this thing has a total capacity. I have the press kit
Loaded.
open.
Engine Echo 129 Victor 7.
129 Victor 7 loading.
It's not much, guys. It's not a lot. It doesn't say it in the press kit. It's like, it's a small sat launcher. Like, it's designed to launch like payloads the size of a shoebox. So, from what I can surmise from this count here with the engines, they have 5 Delphin engines in the first stage, and they don't have engine 1, engine 2, engine 3, engine 4, engine 5, engine 6, except, well, no engine 6. Engine 6 would be the upper stage. It sounds like there's engine Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot. So if the next call out that they make is like Echo or Foxtrot, that they're using NATO phonetic alphabet for their engine configs, and that's all I've kind of been able to understand from what I've been hearing here. They did Echo. So if the next one's Foxtrot, we'll see. Foxtrot 1... So the next call-out should be Foxtrot 128 Victor, right? Is F the... So no Foxtrot. So that would have been the last one there. So they shouldn't have another call-out. Which one of these is their launch pad? I don't know. I think the one on the far left, maybe. So it seems like from... NASA Spaceflight is broadcasting Astra's flight loop. So it seems like they did some reconfiguring to the first stage engines, and they upgraded the software and avionics on the rocket. They must have saw something that they didn't like. So they basically patched the rocket. That's why we're in a hold. They patched the thing. These guys the crazy part about this is that these guys are in San Francisco. They're well, Oakland if you really want to be technical.
Okay.
Right?
Tango, I'd like you to try loading ether sequence 101 Victor 10.
Ether controller config 101 Victor 10.
So we heard Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and then the ether engine. So that's 6 motors. This is Rocket Series 3, Vehicle 3, LV06 overall. Okay? These guys are in San Francisco. They're in the Bay, and they're updating a rocket that is in Alaska. They're updating the software on a rocket that's in Alaska. Because raisins. Yeah. It's pretty cool. They patched the rocket. They hotfixed the thing while it was on the pad. Guys, that kind of stuff happens, dude.
Alright, and Tango, I'd like you to load guidance configuration 5 Victor 127.
Okay, they're updating the GNC
Guidance
on the
config
rocket.
5 Victor 127 loading. Loaded.
I mean, you guys would be... It's crazy how often it's something dumb like that. It's like, oh, turn the rocket off and turn it back on. And it works. It's always something like that. Like, you'd be surprised how often it's something stupid. It's like, oh, we're getting a bad sensor reading. Hold on for a second. Shut the sensor off, turn it back on. Oh, it's working now. Send it. NSF is the official stream, someone. It's pretty damn cool. I didn't know about this until the other day, which is pretty rad. Dang, Windows update. Man, if it's using Windows, I would be a little concerned with the guidance system. Exactly like Starbase bugs. Yeah, Pete. Vista. At the farm, we actually fixed the cloud by smacking it with a wrench. Yeah, percussive maintenance. Just KSP things. KSP is just a piece of software, T-Man. Yeah, mech, I mean, tolerance is big pain in the butt.
Alright, Tango with guidance config loaded. Can you please give me a GNC setup, please? Calling out when complete.
Copy that.
Hold on.
Setting up GNC.
How you remember to turn your on and off your rocket? I don't know. The on button? Yep, there's a guy from the Space Force up there in the top left. Happy. Land center or mission control? I'll let you decide. Competitive CSGO tournament or rocket launch? They don't have the right headsets for competitive gaming. One-ear headsets, bro? Come on. Come on. You can't game with that. Lack of desk slamming. You can if you're a Chad. Starcraft? Our forces are under attack. Battle cruiser operation. Hailing frequencies open. Good day, Commander. Identify target. Proceeding. Also not using gaming mice. Lame. Yeah, I know. You must construct additional pylons. I do see a PS4 controller on Googly Eye's desk. Oh my gosh, you're right. Dude. There is. Yo! That man is playing Galaga. That man is playing Galaga. That's how he flies the rocket. Are you sure he doesn't have Kerbal loaded? When the rocket requires manual flight. Grab the controller! Grab the controller! Oh! Oh! Up.
And if you're
The
joining
bus.
us, we are still in a T-minus 20-minute hold.
GNC
However,
service
teams
complete.
are working through it.
Thank you, Tango, and an AV1 managed polling. Please set us back to both ground and guidance.
And we're getting very close to a
Both
new
ground and
T0,
guidance.
so stand by. We should have a new launch time for you shortly as teams continue to resolve just some quick issues before we release the hold and get back to counting down.
Weather's still looking good, so we hope to have that new T0 very soon.
W, nice. Yeah, maybe Yard, yeah. Yeah, his controller's out of batteries. Mom, I can't pause! It's a live rocket launch! I gotta need new batteries for my controller! Yeah, Josh, yep. Land center, let's go. No, Sonic, it's probably a custom console for reasons. Everybody has one. Could be the radios. Who knows?
This is
All right.
Astra LC on countdown. We are picking the count back up at this time. We are on step 119, moving into Delphin pump spins. Tango, can you please activate machine AV1 power ESC Ace dry spin?
It is active.
Huh.
Tango, please toggle on power ESCs.
Test
Power
flight for the
ESCs
Space Force
toggled.
Falcon. I guess floating. I'm sure they're operating on an encrypted connection, obviously. Yeah, they're gonna spin up the pumps. I'm not sure how though. What, has it got a starter motor on it? Oh. Dude.
And as you can see, we're now counting down. We've recycled the clock just a little bit now, 21 minutes and counting. That gives us a T0 of 45 minutes past
They're
the
electric.
hour,
Boogie,
2:45
woogie, woogie.
p.m. Pacific time, our new target launch time. Carolina, how are
you
things
can
looking
hear
for
'em.
the launch attempt today?
It's a high-pitched whine.
Well, as you've heard, we were in a hold troubleshooting some
Dude.
software configuration issues, but that seems to be resolved. We're back into the count. The team is now completing pump spins for the first stage engines, and we'll be shortly moving into the final preparations of our pre-flight, including that water deluge test.
Gotcha.
That's cool.
Now that the clock has resumed, we're going to take a couple more questions before we get into that terminal count section. We do have a question in chat about will there be any onboard views from the rocket? I can field that one. We are hoping to have some onboard views, but of course that is dependent on how reliable and steady that telemetry connection is. Obviously there is more higher priority data, so we can't guarantee that connection will stay rock stable, but if it is, we promise that we will be showing it best we can. You can see some of the views on there now. That's actually the second stage forward-looking camera up into the payload fairing, one of our onboard views, and we'll be showing those best we can once liftoff.
Yeah,
There is
alright.
the other stage 2 camera looking down. You can actually see just the black outline of that Aether engine, which we will hopefully see igniting in space
Yeah, I think so,
before too
Snickers.
long today.
Fingers crossed.
Nice, Zonic. Here's Link. Okay.
Some other questions. We have one from chat asking,
those
what
things,
function are
yeah.
those various umbilicals providing between the launcher and the rocket itself?
Yes, so those umbilicals will help pump fuel, our propellants on board the rocket, as well as provide communication, and that's how our team here in Launch Control in Alameda communicates with the vehicle. And those umbilicals will disconnect as the rocket takes off.
And it sounds
How
like
tall
we
is
are
the
getting
rocket?
very close to
42
that
feet.
water deluge test. That'll be a nice visual indicator that
not
the
a
countdown
telephone
is
pole.
proceeding.
It's 52
T-minus 19
inches
minutes
in
and
diameter.
counting to the launch. Again, a new T0 of 2:45 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay, we're
And
inside
you
of
just
20
heard we had
here.
another quick weather brief thrown in there and that the wind profiles look good right now, so that's another good sign as we count down towards launch.
Hey, Alex. Bonjour. Bring the pressure down on the stage there. That's why that big vent happened. You want to do that right now, Thomas?
We have another question here in chat talking about the Apollo fusion, which is now involved with ASTRA. Carolina, what can you tell us about that?
Yes, absolutely. We are very excited to have the Apollo Fusion team and technology as part of ASTRA. We
We'll
completed
toggle off on my call.
that acquisition in July.
And really quick, I'm going to cut off that answer because we are coming up on that water deluge test.
Okay.
Off.
It did.
There
Yeah.
we go.
They're spraying.
Tango in the water system machine. Toggle pump full to false.
So
Okay.
Carolina, did that look good to you?
That
Full
looks like a successful deluge test.
So hopefully the next time we see that will be at
Apollo
ignition.
Fusion makes ion engines.
Just a few
Cool.
seconds before. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So to get back to the question that the water deluge test so rudely interrupted.
Yeah, Alex, they spray the water up. That's most pad deluge systems spray down, which is a little weird. I'm wondering why they did that. It must be due to the modularity of the launch pad. I mean, if you look, the only thing that's holding this thing to the ground is a couple of bolts because it's a modular launch pad. You can set it up wherever.
Are easy to manufacture and assemble, and they don't see their job as done when they have something that initially works, but they continue to optimize for manufacturability and scalability, just
Well, they
like
had to
we
keep
do
it
with our
compact,
rockets at
the whole
ASTRA.
thing fits in a
And
shipping
earlier this
container.
week,
That
they had
whole
some
thing.
very exciting news that Apollo Fusion's thruster ignited in orbit, which is a very important milestone in our journey to provide rapid, low-cost access to space. So shout out to the Apollo Fusion team for that milestone, and we at ASTRA are very excited to continue our partnership.
What is their goal for the cost?
And again, we're at T-minus 16 minutes and counting, starting to get into the business end of this countdown. One of the next big
basically keep
milestones
it as
is going
simple
to
as
be
you
the
can
entering of the
and make
terminal
it
count
modular.
at T-minus 15 minutes. So we're just under a minute away from that.
That makes sense, Alex. It's because the
We
launch
still have
pad's
some more
modular.
questions. We'll get through a couple more of these,
So-
but of course, as usual.
All right, I'll run through it one more time. So Astra's a small sat startup company. What they're trying to do, guys, is they're trying to basically offer a low-cost solution, but not only just with a low-cost launch vehicle. Like, the launch vehicle is made out of pretty simple materials. They try to avoid using exotic materials as much as you can. I think Carolina on the cast was saying that the first stage is just sheet metal. So I think it's very, very thin wall steel from what I can see. They try not to make it out of anything crazy, right? And by making a simple rocket, they don't need as complicated of a launcher. So Astra's kind of thing, what they're really trying to bring to the game, right? I guess if you want to call it that, is that their launch pad, the entire launch pad, can be packed up into a shipping container, the whole thing. that whole thing could fit in 2 regular shipping containers, and the only thing you really need is an electrical connection, some liquid oxygen, and an internet connection so they connect to their mission control. You can launch from anywhere. They can launch from Kodiak, they can launch from Vandenberg, they can launch from Wallops, they can launch from Kennedy, they can launch from Boca Chica if they really wanted to. All they need is a parking lot. All you need is a piece of concrete. That's it. Look at the fuel lines for the pad. They're literally hoses that are on the ground. See? The fuel and the liquid oxygen, it's just hoses. Hoses. That's what's cool about this thing. It's mobile. You can take it wherever you want. They don't need to launch in Kodiak. They do because that's where they've been testing the most, but this thing, you can set it up basically anywhere, which is really cool. Oh yeah, you probably yeet it off a carrier.
Fast.
Sure, why not? That'd be pretty sick.
Fast.
All right, we're 14 minutes out. See what
So
we
now
got.
that we have
Tango,
entered
please
terminal
inspect the
count,
launch machine.
I don't want to talk over the countdown net. There we go. Now that we have
That's right,
entered
Killer
terminal count and are about just under 15 minutes from liftoff, how are things looking today,
Yeah,
Carolina?
they could launch from Quad if they really
We are
wanted to.
looking good. We are about to set a new UTC T0.
Yeah. Yeah, that deflector, yeah, there's not a lot of space down there.
Minutes 4-5.
And that is that 45 minutes past the hour.
4-5.
Seconds 0-0.
Second 0.
Okay.
So we have
Saving.
13
confirmed
minutes.
that the weather is go for launch. We have no issues with boats. The range has
Can the ship be straight? If the
given us
waters
the
were calm
go-ahead
enough,
so
Ando,
far.
I don't see
We'll
why not.
confirm that later on in the countdown.
And as we get closer to launch, just again, for those of you just joining, let's go over the details of today's mission, Carolina.
Absolutely.
How tall would a person be? Here, I'll use the picture that Thomas just linked. Let me key the audio.
It's for the Space Test Program, and by commercial orbital launch, we mean that this is a launch conducted under an FAA commercial launch license.
It's not
Our
big,
goal
guys.
with this
Very
flight
small.
today is to successfully reach orbit and do so with a test payload which we will not release. This orbital demonstration launch allows our team to verify numerous upgrades to our launch system since
No,
Rocket
shorter yard.
3.2 was launched in December. Today's
So
launch is an
that's
important
about 6
milestone
feet
in
off the
our
ground.
work at ASTRA. What we learned today will get us closer to launching our next payload.
That crossbar is probably about, maybe
And
about 2
before we
meters.
get further into the count, I'd like to give a big thank you to the entire ASTRA team and their families watching with us today. We couldn't do this without your support. Thank you all so much.
How tall was Vanguard?
After December's launch, we've been
Not much
excited to
taller
get
than
back
this.
to the pad with LV6. As a reminder, in our previous
1.3
launch,
meter
Rocket
diameter.
3.2 successfully passed the Kármán line,
So-
a 100-kilometer altitude
Here.
that's commonly used as the demarcation of space. While the rocket narrowly missed making it into orbit, we were ecstatic
yeah.
with those results. Rocket 3.2 shut down 12 to 15
132
seconds too
centimeters,
soon
dude.
after depleting its fuel at a peak altitude of 390 kilometers and 7.2
it's that
kilometers
big,
per
dude. It's
second,
tiny.
which is just half a kilometer per second short of orbital velocity. It's so close. And since then, we've been fine-tuning that mixture ratio between our
Kerolox.
kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen to propel us further.
How much smaller than Electron? Just a teeny, it's actually smaller. Maybe like
I also want
two-thirds
to
the
take a moment
size.
to recognize the efforts of ASTRA's Red Team. The rocket is controlled from our headquarters here in Alameda, California, and we send a team of 6 ASTRA personnel known as the Red Team to Kodiak for the launch.
6.
Because
6
our rocket
guys and a
and
couple of
support
shipping
systems were
containers
designed
to
with
set up a
simplicity in
launch
mind,
site.
We only need a small and nimble team
That's pretty
on site
cool.
for the launch.
That's pretty
It
cool,
also helps
man.
us limit travel, which is a key
Nice, Tally.
consideration as the COVID-19 pandemic continues. All 6 members of our Red Team are taking regular COVID-19 tests to protect the health and safety of everyone involved in this mission. We hope you and your loved ones are staying safe out there as well.
Absolutely, Carolina.
You
We are
too,
coming
Carolina.
up at T-minus 10 minutes, 45 seconds and counting. We are rapidly approaching the final go, no-go pull for tank pressurization and launch. So let's listen into the countdown net and
This is the opposite of, let's say, Falcon Heavy? No. Flykin, saying this is the opposite of Falcon Heavy would be like saying that a smart car is the opposite of a semi-truck. It's like, I guess. This is just a small sat launcher. A different market is the right way to look at it. Falcon Heavy's really designed for big geostationary satellites. So the satellites that are like 1 to 2 stories tall, that go out to geostationary, that stay out there for a long period of time. This thing is designed to send a payload about this big into space. Maybe this big. It's a small sat launcher, different market. Those are two different markets in the launch kind of economy, I guess. They're targeting different things. So like one's a corner store, you know, like a general store, and the other one's a Walmart. You know what I mean? Like it's different. You know, someone's gonna make a Walmart joke. I know it. I don't know what it is, but don't make it. It's not funny. Don't make a Walmart joke, chat. I swear.
On the ground.
Delphin, please
Someone's gotta make a
provide
Walmart
flight engine
joke.
sequences for us for today.
Engine Alpha sequence 7.
Walmart joke. How dare you?
Victor 9.
Alpha 785 Victor 9 slot 0 loading.
It's about the same size, John. Actually.
Loaded.
Engine Bravo 786 Victor 5.
Bravo 786 Victor 5 slot
Yes.
0 loading.
Lemur, Oscar Lemur.
And as you just heard, teams have pulled go for the launch of Launch Vehicle 0006, Astra's third orbital launch attempt.
Pretty much
just
killer
under
fun.
9 minutes from now.
Six-person
We're now in the
team,
meat of
that's
the
what they were saying.
countdown
That's pretty
and
cool.
getting close to the final countdown towards liftoff.
6 dudes and a bunch of shipping containers can basically
And a little
set
bit
up
about
the
our
launch
goals
site,
for
which is
today.
really cool.
We've talked about achieving orbit, but that is very difficult, and so for this reason, we're being realistic with our expectations. Today is our third attempt to reach orbit and our first test with a sample payload provided by the Space Force to simulate mass. And right now, the team is loading the final flight software onto the vehicle and going through those final preparations for launch.
So now that we're just about 8 minutes away from liftoff and the teams are counting down towards that T0 of 2:45 p.m. Pacific time, as we enter those final minutes of the countdown, I'm now going to hand it off to Carolina and the Countdown Net for commentary of Astra's third orbital launch attempt. Carolina, take it away.
Whiskey, Echo
Absolutely.
November,
We'll
Hotel,
start by
Oscar
telling you
Papa.
about the major flight milestones that we'll see on this flight. They will be displayed on your screen for you to follow
Look at it
along.
stack. Oh, that's
At
cool.
T-minus 3 seconds, the 5 first stage engines will light. If the engine data looks good, the hold down release mechanisms will let go at T0, and the rocket will begin its trip to space. At T plus 25 seconds, we will clear the range and fly over the Pacific Ocean. LV6 will reach max Q, which is the period of maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle, at T plus 1 minute. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, which signals the end of the first stage burn, will occur at T plus 2 minutes 18 seconds. This is followed quickly by fairing separation and stage separation. At this point, the rocket will be in space, just over 100 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. But then there's more if all goes well. After stage separation, upper stage ignition happens at T plus 2
Clear the
minutes
range.
and
Make sure no
32
one's in the
seconds.
way.
And then
If
the
it
upper
comes back
stage
down, you
burns
don't want
for
any
about
boats
6
around there. You
minutes
don't want anybody
until
swimming.
SECO, or second engine cutoff, at T plus 8 minutes and 48 seconds. Then, since we're not releasing an actual payload, the vehicle's systems will simulate a signal for payload deployment. If we make it this far, we will have made it to orbit and would consider this flight to be successful.
Now everything continuing to be on track, just over 6
This
minutes
is Kodiak,
away
Rocket
from
Man.
launch.
You got it. I mean, Flankin, if we're gonna have a way to go, there's gonna be a way to go. I don't want the rocket to land on me. That's called a missile. I want to stand right here when the thing
Thank you,
launches.
sir.
If I have to choose a way to go, I want to stand right here when it
As
goes
you
off.
just heard, we've just been given
Ah!
the go-ahead
You
for
know?
launch from the range.
If we're gonna choose a way to go, that is Viking funeral me, baby. Let's do it. How close could you get? It's still loud, serious. I wouldn't be near it just because don't be near rockets when they go off. The only place you really want to be on a rocket when it goes off, if you're gonna be close to it, is right here. But I don't know. You could be about half mile away. It shouldn't be that big of a problem. It'll be loud. I'd wear hearing plugs, but yeah, provided everything goes right, you can be pretty close to them. It's just loud, man. That's what'll get you. The sound, the vibrations from. That's why they spray the pad with water. The vibrations from these things are so intense that it'll shatter things.
And now in the final almost 5 minutes to T0, we expect that the vehicle will transition to its internal control at T-minus
Something like
60
that,
seconds,
yeah.
and will be continued to listen to the countdown
Yeah, Slim
in these
Pickens
final
like
minutes
it.
before liftoff.
Tango at this time, please enable launch.
Okay.
Launch enabled.
That's a great shot of the teams here at Alameda watching from next to Mission Control just behind us.
Guy took the quick selfie.
Again,
He's like,
just under 5 minutes away from T0.
Can I use the andesite chest in the hotel for the SunTrust building? That's what they're there for, Lunprod. Small. Yeah, look at it. It's a little babby stage. Little babby stage. What is the mission? This is a it's a test flight EMO. This is
4 minutes.
if they make it, it's going to be their first time getting into orbit.
RCO LC on countdown.
Range coordination
RCO
officer.
go.
Please verify range is recording telemetry.
Range is recording.
Copy, thank
It
you.
looks good, Rocket. Yeah. If they make it into orbit, this will be their first time getting there. So what they have is basically a black box inside of the payload fairing where the payload should be. That's going to basically give them information on. It's going to give them information on vibrations on the vehicle, thermal, and acoustic. I mean, vibrations and acoustic are kind of the same thing. Basically, it's just a black box up there, but it's a black box with a transmitter. They're basically just testing the launch environment inside of the payload fairing.
FSO, prepare to issue option command at T+164, calling out at event.
FSO copies.
Tanegashima is the prettiest one in my opinion.
3 minutes.
The monitor has googly
The
eyes.
launch of Astra
Lisa, do you see the
LV
flight director?
0006.
Flight director has a mohawk, dude.
Any three-word hold called from here on out is an immediate abort, regardless of source.
Okay. That's Chris, your old boss. Which Chris Kemp is your old boss? All right. What company is Astra? Astra's the name of the company.
FTS. Please
Flight-
send master enable and watchdog on AFTU.
Automatic flight termination unit. They're
Master
enabling.
enable issued.
There's the flight termination system. So the
Showing
FTS.
watchdog.
The FTS, or the flight termination system, is something that basically self-destructs the vehicle if it goes out of its launch track. So if it goes off nominal and something goes wrong and the rocket goes where you don't want, it'll basically seppuku itself. It'll just. That's what the flight termination system does. In this case, they have an AFTS, so it's automatic. So the rocket will figure out that it's not doing what it should be doing, and it'll terminate.
6.
That's cool. That's cool, Rocket Guy. Right on.
90 seconds.
I mean, Rocket Guy, I like the idea. The shipping container idea, that's really smart. It's really cool. Really cool capability.
Ace at this time, please start
Yeah,
PSD
that's what Thomas was
recordings.
telling me. Really, really cool idea.
PSD recording started.
60 seconds.
60 seconds.
Hey, don't copy me.
The vehicle is on internal control.
Okay. They switched it to internal control, so
First stage tanks are pressing.
you should see these vents close here in a second.
45 seconds.
The rocket's controlling everything.
First stage is at liftoff pressures, 30 seconds.
Okay, let's see what we got, guys.
Twenty.
Sound suppressor should turn on here.
15. Water on. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 1. Ignition 0.
Hold.
Abort.
Hold.
Rocket idle.
Didn't get a good ignition. They didn't get a good ignition there. Tanks down from flight pressure.
Looks like an abort was called at T0.
Oh. Ah! That sucks.
The team will look into the issue and we will hopefully make another attempt.
That was like the absolute last second you could have aborted.
Tango, confirm LOX tanks are venting.
LOX tank is...
Why is this rocket small? Because it's designed to launch small satellites. Small satellites, small rocket. Whew. It sounded like they only had a partial ignition there, guys. It sounded like one or two of the engines turned on. It sounds like that. Don't get me wrong. They have to.
Tango, confirm ignitors are off.
They have
everything is in idle.
Confirm, but it looks like they got one engine to turn on, and then a second one maybe, and then it shut off after that. This stuff does happen. It's annoying.
Confirm vehicle has gone back to GSE power.
Okay, they plugged the vehicle back into the grid. How long is the window? Window goes until the 11th of September. Yeah, it's a test flight.
Again, abort
Launch it when you're
called
ready.
right near T0. Teams are currently working through their abort procedures and we're standing by for word of the next attempt.
Something floating. Yeah, it's got to be something simple. Floating disk. Yeah. The company's motto is simple is scalable. So that's actually really smart advice.
Vehicles on GSC power.
And Tango, please deactivate launch machine at this time.
Okay. Shuttle could not do that once its SRB's ignited. Well, that's why they fired the engines at 6 seconds and made sure the engines were working correctly, Apocalypsis, before they lit the SRBs.
Okay, going from abort to recycle checklists at this time. Odin, you are good to pull logs.
Okay. So, what these flight controllers are going to do now is the vehicle automatically terminated it. Nobody called hold on the countdown loop. So that means the rocket saw something during engine ignition that it didn't like. Now, as a flight controller, here's what you have to do. This is like playing the ultimate game of Jenga, because you could collapse the tower here. You could collapse the whole, well, not even the tower, you could collapse the whole damn rocket. Jenga tower, I guess. It's kind of like Jenga. You don't remove pieces, though. But they do with the stage, but that's, I digress. What they're going to do as, sorry, what they're going to do with the, what they have to do is first of all, they're going to put the rocket into safe condition. And that's what they did. They plugged it back into the grid. They took it off internal power to make sure that the batteries on the rocket are fully charged, right? Then they brought the tanks down from flight pressure, and now they're going to put it back into a cycled position. They're basically top off the propellants back inside of the vehicle. And now, here's the thing. You don't send it again. You don't just be like, oh, it didn't like that. Let's just try again. That's the definition of insanity. Here's the tough part is you got to figure out why it did that. You got to figure out why it did it, what caused it, and try to fix that problem. You can't sending it after it aborts like that. It won't make it. It usually doesn't work that way. Sometimes it does, but it depends on the severity of what failed and why. So that's what they're going to try to figure out now. They're going to try to figure out why it did that. But first and foremost, you have to put the rocket back into a safe state. Rockets are the most safe that a rocket can be is with no fuel in it, just sitting there, right? The second most is actually when you have a full tank of gas. That's why I said they're going to retop the tanks off, and then they're going to reopen the tank vents. So they're pumping liquid oxygen back into the tanks on the first and second stage, and they have the vents open. The vents being open like this on the first and second stage is a very good indicator of them filling the tanks up with fuel again. Especially since that vent is so long. So the flight controllers are going to cycle the vehicle. They're going to get it back to a safe state, ready for terminal count again, and then you got to figure out what happened. You got to figure out what happened and why, and that can take time. But here, I'll turn them back on. GNC called aboard. Okay. Why is it safe with either no fuel or full of fuel? Because when you fill a rocket up with fuel, when you fill the rocket up with fuel, it's going through what's called transients. You're changing pressure inside of the tank, you're changing the temperature inside of the tank, and if you're changing pressure and temperature, you're changing the structural configuration of the rocket, meaning that you're shifting molecules around inside of the metal on the rocket. Fueling the rocket is actually more dangerous. Standing next to the rocket when it's being fueled is more dangerous than standing next to a rocket with a full tank of gas. Full tank of gas, it's nice and stable. This is why they don't just like flash flood the thing with fuel. It takes a second for the rocket to fuel up. Like Falcon 9 takes 45 minutes to go through the fueling procedure. You got to do it slowly and you have to be deliberate. If you try to do something too quickly, you're gonna flash freeze something and it'll explode. You don't want to do that, so you got to take your time. But the rocket is in a very safe state when it has a full tank of gas, and it's in the safest state obviously when it has no fuel in it, right? So that's why they're going to top the tanks off and figure out what's going on. We don't talk about that, Wisp. They said the second stage at flight pressure, but not the first stage. Could that be the cause of abort? Well, they probably had a little bit of boil off, so let me listen.
Another go around tomorrow.
24-hour scrub.
RCO copies.
All right, and as you've just heard from our launch director, we are going to stand down for the day to troubleshoot the abort that was triggered at T0. Our window does continue until September 11th, so there's plenty of time for us
Okay, they're standing down. They saw something that they don't like. So when they stand down like that, guys, that means whatever happened with it is a problem that can't be solved right now. Or whatever happened with the rocket is complicated enough where they're going to need some time to review the data.
After the teams are able to complete their investigation of today's abort and see when the next attempt may be. But stay tuned for future spaceflight news coverage. Carolina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Thomas.
Absolutely. Until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.
Well, thank you, NASA Spaceflight. Yeah, guys, once again, this is not an operational mission for them. These are test flights. They're big test flights. Well, not big. It's a small rocket. The test flights, you don't go unless you're absolutely sure. There's too many things with the freaking rocket that it's so complicated. There's so much stuff that can go wrong. Be as ready as you possibly can be. If you see something that you don't like, don't send it. Because if you see something that you don't like and you send it, it's not going to work. You're not going to make it into space, and it's a big waste of time. You know? So they're going to review the data. They're going to figure out what went wrong. And 24-hour scrub. They'll be back tomorrow. SN11 disagrees. Well, Swishio, that's a completely different style of testing. When you're doing more waterfall run-of-the-mill testing with rockets, you don't send the full fidelity prototype. Don't do that. It's not SpaceX. You know what I mean? SpaceX just likes to yeet things. That's what they do, though. NSF is doing the official stream for NASA. That's correct. If GNC triggered the abort, could it be that the abort came from either electrical or software rather than engine hardware? Here, we'll look at it one more time. Here, let's watch it one more time. Let's see. Yeah, Rocket, it's not comparable at all. This is a full developmental flight test. This is more like Artemis 1, less like a SN11. But it's important to know the difference and explain the difference. This is a full fidelity flight prototype, dude. All right, here, let's take a look.
Never mind.
I'm going to back it up a little bit more. All right, let's see.
15.
Okay, so the sound suppressor's turned on. The vent closed there. Let me hear it.
7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 1. Mission 0. Abort.
Back at idle.
Abort hit.
looks like an abort was called at.
Yeah, that wasn't a person that called that. The rocket stopped the ignition sequencer. It fired one engine for a second, and then they stopped. There's no way a human can react that quickly. That was an automatic abort. It did something. The rocket did something during the ignition sequence that it didn't like. Here, let's let me look at it again.
5, 4, 2, 1. Mission. We're on 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Do we want to watch it in slow-mo? We can do that. Here, let's see. I'm not going to put the sound on because it'll sound ridiculous.
4.
Actually, it's not bad. But I retract my previous statement. Alright, so from that ear-shattering sound that we heard there in 25 speed, so an engine turned on. They had combustion, but it looks like an engine didn't get up to full pressure. You would see flames shooting out the deflector, kind of right at my melon right here. You would see the flames shooting out. So let's see, do we see it? Enhance. Enhance. I'm not even positive we had all the Delphin engines turned on. But we need the sound! Why would... Alright. Let me underdrive the sound. And then we'll... You guys want the sound, you're gonna get it, but you're not gonna learn anything from it, but alright. No.
Mission 0. Abort.
Back in idle.
Back into idle is what we heard there. This sounds like a Terminator with dysentery. The bag is also a hat. The bag's also a hat. Rocket guy, what do you think? I don't think an engine even turned on, man. It's not. They didn't even spool it, dude. Yeah. See the fireball? Don't see the jet. Yeah, that's what I mean. It looks like they had combustion and they started it, but the engine didn't. The Delphin didn't Delphin. Here, let's take a look. So, pre-burner? I don't think this rocket has pre-burners. I think it's just electric. It's just an electric motor attached to the pump, kind of like Rocket Lab. I don't necessarily think anything broke either. So, you see this flame right here that's propagating off of the out of the deflector? That's the overpressure flame. That happens. Basically, the rocket farts out literally a lot of gas all at once, and that gas temporarily gets compressed when it tries to get pushed out and away. It hits the atmosphere, so you get a little bit of a pressure shock wave here. It's called an overpressure event. That's pretty normal. That's pretty run-of-the-mill for a rocket engine turning on right there. They're spraying the water at it for a pad deluge and sound suppressors, dude. The pad deluge is up here. So 3, 2. The ignition sequencer should go right there. Okay. You go to play KSP today. I'll get back to you on that, Vino. The flames at the bottom of the F1 engines on the Saturn V was an overpressure event. Yeah. Yeah, a big one. And the overpressure event was so violent, it actually went up the flame trench, and then because all the F1 engines firing all at once creates an insane vacuum. It sucks it back down into the flame trench. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. I found a picture of how they're going to relight the rocket. What's that, Chuck? Nice. So let's see, 2. So okay, there you go. See the blast from the overpressure event right there. So see how the what the flame's doing right there? It's going down the deflector and shooting off to the side. That's what you want to see, and then the engine just puffed out. Bad. Interesting that they stopped the sound suppressor right there. They stopped the sound suppressor right at engine ignition. I don't think that's cause of failure or anything, or cause of the scrub. I'm just, yeah, we definitely got an engine turning on there, dude. GNC abort literally means nothing. That's like that GNC means the flight computers shut the rocket off because it didn't see anything. That won't really hint much at cause of failure. Yeah, maybe it blew the water stream out. Thomas, does that happen right there? Does that happen on? Has that happened on previous Astra launches with the sound suppressor turning off for a second? How many shipping containers full of water does this need for launch? Not 100% sure. Yeah, it could have been interrupted by the gases. That's a good point. Because, yeah, Rocket Guy, I gotta remember, it's shooting, the flame deflector's here, and the water is shooting up into the flame deflector. That's very different, but that's part of, why they did that is because of the modular launch pad, I think. Yeah, pintle injector, yeah, exactly, yeah. And then the pad deluge turned on there with those pipes. See that? See these guys? That's the pad deluge. Let me see it one more time. Man, that shut it off real quick, dude. Even in 20, even at 25 speed, that was really fast. So it saw something it didn't like. Yeah, see, yeah, okay. Yep. Yeah, because right when the rocket engine shuts off, the sound suppressor goes back to shooting up in the air. Yep. I don't know. Guys, like, honestly, that could be 1,000. That could be 1,000 things. There's no way to definitively say what it is. The computer shut something off. But once again, that could be 1,000 different things, dude. It could be that the engine malfunctioned. It could be that one of the engines, they commanded it to fire. The computer commanded it to fire. It didn't turn on. It could be, people are saying, oh, GNC aborted. Yeah, GNC aborted is like saying, that's like saying, oh, my computer shut down because of the operating system. Like, Windows people are going, yeah. So does that all the time? No. That could be 1,000 different reasons why it did it. It does compare? Yeah, Thomas, all right, I see it. So, yeah, they're going to have to figure out what it did. It did something that didn't like... Are there any well-known launches where the rocket went off without the vibration dampening? The vibration dampening? Damping or dampening? You talking about the sound suppressor? STS-1 didn't have enough sound suppressor, and the SRB, the vibrations from the SRB were so bad that it shook tiles off the shuttle. I could think of that one off the top of my head. 2 videos of the rocket's successful liftoff. Let me see. Alright, let's take a look. Let's, yeah, we gotta compare it to what it should look like. Let's see. So this is what it should be doing. Well, that's pretty cool. See, speaking of third-party hosting streams, Tim will do one for Firefly. He'll do the one for Firefly. Cool. Neat. They'll be officially... We're very proud to be hosting the official live stream for Firefly's very first orbital launch attempt on September 2nd. Their Alpha rocket is awesome, and I can't wait to watch them with all the beautiful launch of Vandenberg with you all. That's really cool, man. Awesome. Check ASTRA. Alright, I will in a moment. Let's take a look here. So it seems like we got to about this point and then it shut everything off. Right about there. Yeah, that dude. that could be a bajillion different things. ASTR. Oh, ho, 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 no. Well. Ow. Oops. Yeah, a little dent. It's not that big a deal. It didn't jump very far, guys. You guys got to remember, this right here is for people that are saying, for people that, yeah, somebody said it in chat right when I was going to say it. Some investors are not engineers, apparently. That's right, Cerebral. That dip right there is from people saying, hey, they went to launch it and it didn't launch. I don't have confidence in this anymore. So that's literally what that is. It's a market reaction. The market reacts to speculation like that all the time. Funny thing is that that's from people speculating on something they know nothing about. You think that happens in this day and age? You think that happens? You should buy the dip. That's not financial advice. You think that happens in this day and age? Nah. Okay, come on. Is this the end of ASTRA? Yeah. No, how can it be? We're so advanced nowadays. Yeah. No, it's called gambling. When you don't know what you're buying, selling, if it's worth that price. Sure. We're all experts in here. I'm an expert in streaming. Yeah, I mean, Rocket Guy, but see, here's the thing, dude. That's Rocket, and this is one of the things that I'm learning about rocket science. I know dick about rocket science. I know nothing about it. That's why I defer to your freaking judgment, dude, because I'm not the best at this. I don't know everything. I'm not even close. But they are 10 years behind SpaceX. Oh, you're an expert tank watcher, Biz. I got it. I'm an expert at sleep. Rocket Guy still knows a little more. Still knows dick. Don't you have a master's in AE or something, dude? Like, yeah. One of the things I'm really trying, dude. Olive oil expert. Alex, I thought you would be a cheese and wine expert. Where is your cheese and your wine? I'm an expert paint drying watcher. Only a master's. So, yeah. It's fun to kind of speculate and guess what happened with the rocket guys, but yeah, that's not how I would be doing this if I was working for the company. I wouldn't be like, well, I think it's this. Oh, he's like, I know a little about a lot of things. But yeah, anyway, that's going to do it for the coverage there, guys. So, here's the thing. Alright, I want to play some KSP tonight. But also, the Icarus beta should open in, actually, about 2 hours. Kind of want to check out Icarus tonight. I didn't know that it was coming out today. The Icarus beta. Icarus is think first-person RimWorld. If you took RimWorld and you combined it with, like, DayZ, that's what Icarus is. It's a survival game. Yeah. You crash in a spaceship on a planet and you have to survive. It's like first person RimWorld, man. Rust, but it's RimWorld. Literally, yeah, that's it, dude. 8 p.m. Yeah, dude, I kind of want to play it. I want to give it a shot. Can we do 2 hours of KSP? Yeah. If you switch to Space News now, make sure to switch away from Science and Technology back to split the segment for YouTube. Yep. Well, it's PvE. We could work on ground station engineering for the time being. I think you want to work on ground station engineering for the time being. No. Can you crash a moon probe in 2 hours? What was the game? It's called Icarus? Yeah, it's made by our buddy Dean. Dean Hall. You guys know him. Stationeers, the game we played Stationeers in the past. I don't think there's much news. Now, ASTRA was basically the space news segment, guys. So, all right. Let's prioritize our time here. How about we play some KSP now? Let's do KSP now, and then we'll run the lunar mission. It should take about 2 hours, give or take. Might have to re-engineer the re-entry probe. I keep getting that, what's the word? Wrong. It keeps exploding. That's a cool looking ship, Thomas. I'll tell you what. Boy. A dang cool looking ship, boy. So how about we do that, and then after the mission, we'll try to pop in and play some Icarus and all the way until Friday Night Racing. So we'll shift KSP earlier a little bit today. Can we try redocking the probe and landing it that way? Sure. Yeah. I don't see why not. No other news to cover? The news cycle is slow enough to where there's no outstanding news out there. Thomas, is there anything? Not like anything really crazy? I don't think there's much. There's a couple of things with Roscosmos working on the Angara pad, but Kem, if you're still here, we can do that tomorrow. I kind of want to go play KSP now. I think that would be the right move. There's this. What's that? Oh, yeah. It's just some HLS nonsense. Icarus looks interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a shot. There's... Yeah, okay. We got that. So, yeah. Let's, Scott Manley said ULA is done selling Atlas launches. Yeah, Scott said that because Tori Bruno said that. Yeah, no more Atlas. Now, okay, look, with Atlas 5 dudes, just because they're done selling Atlas doesn't mean there's not going to be any more Atlas launches. They have about 30 cores left. You're going to see a lot of Atlas launches. There's still plenty. Atlas still has plenty left to give. They have a huge supply of them because they have a huge supply of RD-180s. They're going to There's still plenty of Atlas launches, but yeah, they took it off. They pulled it from market demand. Or from market access, I guess. 29 left. Yep. What could you do in 2 hours? I'm still catching up. Just watch you recover SN7 from orbit. Since I recovered 7 from orbit, Alex, we've launched 2 missions with it. So you know what? I'm going to shut up. We're going to switch over to KSP, and we're going to send that probe out. Let's switch over to Kerbal, and I want to get this mission done, and then we'll play Icarus after the mission. Let's get everything. Why not just do all of it? Have you tried just doing everything that you want to do?